So Scott London is our resident constitutional educator. I just gave you a title, an official title.
I'll take it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to give it to you again.
So before I get started, we've been doing this for a little while now. We're going to have a little pop quiz because it's been a little while, right? So let's start off. How many rights are enumerated in the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution? Spit it out. 5. Outstanding. Now, so we now know there's 5 of them. Think for a minute. How many can you name?
All 5.
Okay, so who can name all 5?
Free speech, freedom, peaceful assembly.
Speech, assembly,
Right to petition.
right to petition,
To the government. Freedom of religion.
religion.
I don't spot now.
We got assembly. Press. Press. Oh yeah. Oh, this one. Right. So. Oh, that's true. With the current media, we may have forgotten that we actually are supposed to have freedom of press. So, freedom of press, religion, speech, petition the right government, and assembly. And now, while I'm on assembly, here's another real quick one. What is the limitation on lawful assembly? There's one.
Peaceful.
Outstanding. I love this crowd. So, I mentioned all of those because today, in the Texas Constitution, we're going to talk about freedom of speech, press, and libel. So, I'm just going to start off with what our Texas Constitution says in Article 1, which is the Bill of Rights, Section 8, freedom of speech, press, libel. Every person shall be at liberty to speak, write, or publish his opinions on any subject, being responsible for the abuse of that privilege, and no law shall ever be passed curtailing the liberty of speech or of the press. In prosecutions for the publication of papers, investigating the conduct of officers or men in public capacity, or when the matter published is proper for public information, the truth thereof may be given as evidence. And in all indictments for libels, the jury shall have the right to determine the law and facts under the direction of the court as in other cases. That was a long one, right? So we said a lot of stuff there. So let's kind of break down for a little bit, okay? So let's kind of start there at the end. It says, all indictments for libel, the jury shall have the right to determine the law and the facts under the direction of the court as in other cases, which, don't they kind of do that already? That's why they put that as in other cases, right? You have the right to determine the facts of the case. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. They're just kind of giving some direction there. So let's back up a little bit more. Because haven't we heard, well, I can say whatever I want, right? I can say, well, freedom of speech, I can say whatever I want. But yet, here it says for prosecutions for publication of papers, right? Can you actually be prosecuted for publications of papers? Well, let's look at the definition of libel, okay? So we're going to dive a little bit out of the Constitution, but we're still in Texas law, and this is the definition of the elements of libel. A libel is a defamation expression in written or other graphic form that tends to blacken the memory of the dead or that tends to injure a living person's reputation and thereby expose the person to public hatred, contempt, or ridicule, or financial injury, or to impeach any person's honesty, integrity, virtue, or reputation, or to publish the natural defects of anyone and thereby expose the person to public hatred, ridicule, or financial injury. Wow. How often does that happen on Facebook? Every single day. And you know, what do they say? Freedom of speech, I can say what I want. You can. Absolutely. Well, let me go back to that first part of the Constitution, or that element there. It says, every person shall be at liberty to speak, write, or publish his opinions on any subject. Here's the catcher. Being responsible for the abuse of that privilege. You mean we're supposed to have consequences for our actions? It's crazy, right? But we're supposed to be responsible for our words. Now, can you say whatever you want? Yes. Is there going to be a consequence for what you say? Possibly. And that's okay. And now it is okay to say things that aren't nice. Because did you catch that last part in there? Jumping back over to the libel definition. Or was it? I saw it.
Was it the Constitution?
Oh, is it in the Constitution? Oh, that's right. I'm looking on the wrong one. The truth thereof may be given in evidence. Oh. So let me turn the page over here. We're still talking in libel. It says truth, a defense. The truth of a statement in a publication on which an action for libel is based is a defense for that action. So if I'm telling something that's not nice but is true, that's actually a defense. Now I know we have some attorneys in the room, and so I'm sure they've understood everything that I've said, and please correct me if I'm wrong. But for those of y'all that aren't attorneys, have I said anything that is difficult to understand? Are these concepts so lofty that you need to go to school for 6 years to figure out what I've just told you? No. Why is that? Because we're supposed to know what the Constitution says. For those of us that take an oath, okay, so let's see, we had the military members in here that took an oath, right? We have elected officials that took an oath. We even have law enforcement officers that take an oath, right? Attorneys take an oath. Okay, so we take this oath to the Constitution, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Has anybody in here under public service taken an oath that the first thing that oath was to was not to the Constitution? No. Your first and primary responsibility in your oath is to the Constitution. So if you have an obligation to the Constitution, is it not important to know what it says? And now for the rest of you who didn't take an oath, you live in this country, right? How do you know if your rights are gone if you don't know what they are? So I'm here today speaking with the liberty that has been codified into law both in the U.S. and Texas Constitution and the freedom of speech to educate y'all on what our Constitution says. Please feel free to exercise your rights. And now I'm going to end with one of my favorite quotes. Because if you look on quotes for speech, there's a bunch of them. But here's one of my favorites. And forgive me, I don't remember exactly who it was that said it, but popular speech requires no protection. Now think about that for just 1 minute. Especially in this day of cancel culture, right? We say things and we're trying to get shut down. If you're saying something that's popular, do you need anybody to protect you? But if you're saying something that is not so popular, if somebody is saying something that even I don't like, that I disagree with, how many of y'all have heard of Westboro Baptist Church? If you haven't, just Google them, okay? They say some pretty hateful things. And I will do what I can to protect others, but I will also do what I can to protect their right to say things provided that it's true. So, I've taken my time. Thank you once again, and we'll see you next week. Dave, how do we say that?